Good morning and a warm welcome to all of you who've joined the webinar already. We wait for a couple of seconds as we go through some of the housekeeping as other people join the webinar as well. Today's webinar is Cognitive Bread Crumbs, using the Kata to inform leadership decisions. It's brought to you by Swift Kanban from Digiity. Let's get started with some of the introductions and agenda items. Start with introductions and then a quick word about Digiity and Swift Kanban to some of you who are not familiar with us, the company or the product. Then I'll hand over the microphone to Michael Blaha, who is today's main speaker, who will present on the topic of cognitive breadcrumbs using the Kata to inform leadership decisions. We'll end the webinar with Q&A session. Just so you know, the webinar is being recorded, and the recording will be made available after the webinar in a follow-up email from our side. The questions will be taken via the Q&A box on the right side of your screen. You'll see a panel that lets you enter the questions. Go ahead and enter questions at any time during the webinar. Once we're done with the presentation by Mike, we will start the Q&A session and take up your questions. Today's main speaker is Michael Blaha. Michael is manager in the cloud infrastructure team at Optum, which is the IT arm of United Health Group. I'm your host. My name is Mahesh Singh. I'm co-founder and senior vice president of marketing here at Digiity Swift Kanban. Just to give you a little bit of introduction to Mike. Firstly, Mike is an old friend. He's been a champion and a sponsor of Kanban in Optum. And it's been a pleasure and honor to be working with him over the last several years. He's a manager and a product management role in the cloud infrastructure team that helps design and build the new services and technologies that power the Optum cloud. And he will talk a little bit more about exactly what that means. It's a exciting role that he has at Optum, leading this group. He's been a catalyst as far as lean and agile evolution in the company is concerned, and I've seen him really be the change agent and a proponent of extensive adoption of Kanban and DevOps and lean and agile in Optum's overall organization. Mike has incorporated several aspects of lean startup, Kanban, and Toyota Kata in all of the work that he's been involved with, as well as other teams that he's been helping in Optum. Before I hand over the mic to Mike, I'm sorry, I shouldn't be saying that, Mike to Michael. Let me just give you a quick overview of Digiity and Swift Kanban. Digiity is a pioneer in the web-based applications for collaboration, application lifecycle management, visual and distributed project management. We are headquartered in Cupertino, California, here in the San Francisco Bay Area. We have offices in other parts of the world as well. We have about 700,000, a little over 700,000 users worldwide using our various products. Our products themselves cover these various areas that I just mentioned. And Swift Kanban, of course, is our flagship product for lean Kanban, agile implementation in organizations such as Optum and others. Just a little bit about Swift Kanban. Swift Kanban is a Kanban tool meant for use by teams that are implementing lean, agile, Kanban, and other visual ways of managing their projects and various business processes. A lot of it is used by software and IT teams. That's where we typically find Kanban's initial implementations. But very quickly, they also go on to using Kanban and Swift Kanban in other areas of the business. For example, we've seen its use in marketing, legal, procurement, HR, etc., and a variety of other functions. A lot of people use Swift Kanban for personal Kanban purposes, and those of you who do this would be familiar with that. You can use it very easily for managing your own personal work, whether at home or at work. And so therefore, Swift Kanban has really been used in a variety of different functions. One of the things that we are known very well for is our strong support for some of the Kanban analytics and Kanban metrics that are very popular with teams that are implementing Kanban. And so we have a fairly rich set of analytics that a lot of our customers tend to like. And again, I would invite you to take a look at some of these capabilities if you're not yet familiar with Swift Kanban. Finally, last slide here, just to give you a quick idea of some of our key customers, and you'll recognize a number of these brands that use us for a variety of different functions around both tech as well as non-tech functions. So with that, let me hand over the presentation to Mike. Mike, a very warm welcome to you, and let me go ahead and make you presenter here.
Well, thank you, Mahesh, and hello, everybody. All right, just going to grab the presenter, and let me just verify if everybody can see my screen. Does that look good to you, Mahesh?
No, right now we are back to the meeting room, so you need to probably bring up
this. There we go. How about now?
Yep, perfect.
All right. Well, thanks, Mahesh. And boy, it's a pleasure to be here today. I really appreciate you inviting me to come and share. So my purpose and my time here with you today will be sharing this idea of cognitive breadcrumbs. I was going to give myself an introduction, but I think Mahesh gave a better introduction than I could ever have for myself. Just a little bit background, though. You know, throughout my career, I've held the hat of manager, technologist, product manager, portfolio consultant, coach, and as Mahesh said, sort of a catalyst for change and lean adoption within Optum and other companies as well. Related to that, this idea of cognitive breadcrumbs is just one piece of sort of that learning that I'd like to share with you guys, specifically around using Toyota Kata to generate these cognitive breadcrumbs in order to share learnings amongst teams, stakeholders, especially leaders. And I'm also going to share with you an experience report on how we did that. So a little bit of context here. I work within Optum's cloud infrastructure team, and for any of you familiar with the nebulous concept of cloud computing, the real, I guess, tangible aspect of cloud is that there is a data center and infrastructure that really supports and is the foundation of all of those cloud services, and that is what my team basically builds, helps design services that basically are, in essence, underpinning and providing these cloud services to Optum and to our customers. So I'm going to share with everybody now, kind of roll back really about a year and a half, 2 years, and share with everybody how we used to do development for these services. So typically, these services would really start out with a leader having an idea. And that leader's idea could be a great idea, but typically the leader was, higher level. It could be my boss, a senior director, VP, somebody within the org who says, hey, this is a good idea. Let's go implement it, right? The team would then get, a pretty short period of time to start building the solution out. Time is of the essence, right? Hey, we're in technology, and technology is a very fast developing market, and we've got to make sure we've got this stuff built so that we don't end up on the bottom of the contender list. We get to test. We test out everything within that technology, within that service, and everything looks pretty darn good. Then we get to pilot. We actually start working with our first customers or our stakeholders, and we realize, oh, okay, well, maybe things weren't as great as we thought we were headed for, and we got to refactor some things here. Okay. And then finally, we hand off to operations, and oftentimes this might be the first time operations really got hands-on experience with this technology. And as you can see from this picture, obviously this is a metaphor, but oftentimes this is how it felt when we turned over to operations. We realized that process was broken. And so we started reading a number of books within the management team here. Kanban by David Anderson, Principles of Product Development Flow by Don Reinertson, And then Lean Enterprise by Jez Humble, Joanne Molaski, and Barry O'Reilly, all fantastic books. And the main gist of those books is really, how do you get better at delivering the products that you really need to deliver? And so we started to optimize our value stream, optimize our delivery organization in order to be able to get to this point where we had improved flow efficiency. But then we got good at delivering, and we realized, well, are we delivering the right it? What's the point of delivering something if you don't really understand what you need to deliver in the first place? And so we discovered really this concept of discovery. We have to spend time in a lean way testing out ideas very quickly in order to get rapid feedback and validation. Then we can deliver, or we can drop it and move on, right? And iterate through very quickly. Again, this is books, really great books that cover this sort of concept are Lean Startup by Eric Ries, Osterwalder's Business Model Canvas, and some other really excellent writings. Again, Lean Enterprise has some great work on this too. But it's so important because opportunities are really something that is you've got to discover at the right time, and and if you're spending time doing discovery in a very lean way, you won't be delivering that wrong thing and have regrets. And this is a shameless picture. I just had to get in my presentation somehow. I love this picture. So anyway, so all that's synthesized into a value stream. This is a picture of our organization's portfolio board. And you can see here we had sort of a discovery phase where you're doing those rapid iterations, and also a delivery phase where we were executing and delivering those technologies as lean and as quickly as we possibly could. And through that process, we began to learn that there was a piece that was missing. And that piece was, oftentimes during discovery, we took really unexpected paths that helped us get to the real crux of what the customer was looking for. The question often came up from leaders, well, hey, I asked you to deliver, A, and you gave me X. What the heck, right? Why did you do that? So we started to see this need for really showing how we took this journey during discovery and telling that story. Furthermore, we found that oftentimes our leaders were the ones that needed to be convinced of the direction. My senior director actually says this very well. Leaders often become leaders because they have the answers, right? And they've often been expected to just have the answers in previous roles. In some cases, they were even individual contributors at one time and were engineering. And so those habits, continue on as you go up the chain in leadership often. And this is a hard trend. Or a hard habit to kill sometimes. Also, leaders can often be skeptical, and I'd say a healthy skepticism is often what gets them to that position in leadership. So we have this sort of we saw this sort of impediment. We're coming up with these really great sort of solutions that we felt were well vetted, but our leaders often were challenging those. And so the proposition here today is, Toyota Kata is a way to help with this dialogue and to help share with leaders how we took this journey. Now, I'm guessing that a lot of you, if you're familiar with Digiity, you're familiar with the concepts of Kanban, you're familiar with the concepts of Lean, and Toyota Kata is actually a derivative of Lean. It's been the phrase that's coined by Mike Rother. There's a great book called Toyota Kata that he's written. And I just want to give everybody just a little bit of background on what is Toyota Kata. So if you think about just the word kata itself, it actually harkens back to Japanese martial arts. And if you watch the movie Karate Kid, or which is probably a terrible example of Japanese martial arts, but any movie where you have students practicing in like a dojo or something like that, they're all choreographing sort of the same movements, the same patterns into a particular timing. Those choreographed patterns are called a kata. And what Toyota Kata is it's a way to choreograph patterns of thinking, patterns of thought in order to build that muscle memory for your mind. And you know, when I say muscle memory, I mean the whole point of the kata is when you're in a stressful situation, when you're in a situation where you feel off balance, the kata is meant to sort of infuse that muscle memory so that you just move without even thinking. And that's the whole idea behind Toyota Kata, is we build really the scientific method as a way of thinking into sort of just our system one sort of reactionary thinking, so that we can certainly process and adapt in a scientific way while testing these hypotheses. So here's a real basic Toyota Kata example. Mike Rother would call this a starter kata today. And it's really kind of a no-brainer if you look at it. You understand the direction, you grasp your current condition, you know what is the process and the current pattern, you establish a target condition, and then he uses PDCA, which is Plan, Do, Check, Act. You can use many different forms of ways to sort of iterate and record your learnings, but this is just an example again. So that should give you just a real basic framework and idea of what Toyota Kata is. It's really sort of a meta methodology. It goes beyond, or I would argue underpins, Kanban, Agile, any of these lean practices that are really I think critical to developing new technologies rapidly. So now I'm going to share with you guys our experience report. And this experience report is really around a particular project that we were working on as a team. We call them Monster VMs. And so just a little bit more context for those of you who are not technical or don't have a technical background. VM is sort of an acronym for virtual machine or virtual computer. And the whole point of VMs or virtual computers is that, you know, if you think about sort of traditional computing, you had a computer with an operating system on it and an application. Single one-to-one ratio. What VMs give us in cloud computing is really the ability to have many servers, many virtual machines on a single piece of hardware, thus giving us good densities in our data centers, so we can really make sure that we're maximizing the potential of our space and our power. And it also gives us flexibility to spin up and spin down new servers very quickly. So in this context, we were being asked to kind of scale our infrastructure to support extra large VMs. We currently had supported, you know, small, medium, and large sizes. If you guys go to AWS or Azure, you know, you can kind of check out the different VM sizes, and you know, they extra small, small, medium, large, extra large, that sort of thing. And our organization was really getting challenged to come up with a way to support an extra large VM platform. The reason for this was really that our customers would upgrade their VMs and make them bigger, and they would basically overload the capabilities of our current hardware, and they would cause performance issues. So this was actually one of the first times we practiced the kata in this exercise. And you can see here, this is a version of the kata coined by Melissa Perry called the product kata. It's a very simple version. We have a goal. You can see our goal here. I worked this out with my boss. And we have a target condition, which is really sort of that iterative step that you want to get to, right? And that target condition that we wanted to get to here was problem-free extra large VM sizes need to be made available to our requesters, right? It's just what we want to get to. And so we start very simply. Again, this kata is about building sort of that muscle memory of the mind. We start with, what's our current condition? What do we see around us? What are we experiencing? What obstacle is going to prevent us from getting to this target condition? What step are we going to take to get around that obstacle, to get through that obstacle? What do we expect to happen, and what do we learn, right? So this is a way to record that journey and iterate. We can have many, many lines here. This is just one line of iterations. And so my team began that journey. We began iterating through and peeled away the layer of the onion. And we really discovered a platform solution which was not at all what we had expected. We were basically evaluated multiple platforms, and the solution that actually looked to be the best fit from I'll say an empirical perspective was not new. It wasn't sexy like the newest, latest, greatest technology we were looking for, or looking at rather previously, but it was more cost effective, it was more efficient, it gave us higher performance, had smaller footprint, all these great things, right? And really the design proposition was somewhat heretical compared to what the direction we had been going previously as an organization. So we had to present our findings to all of our stakeholders, and this is, again, part of that early discovery process. We had not developed any solutions yet. We wanted to just share the learning we had done, and so we invited engineering, operations, capacity management, all the folks that were really kind of left out previously during our delivery process. Remember I shared early on how sometimes operations and capacity management would get engaged at the end. Well, this is our effort of bringing everybody to the front of the discussion, preloading the discussion, if you will. And as predicted, our leadership was very skeptical. In essence, we were a great analogy would be that we were proposing that the best solution for moving forward with our whole platform here was really a Taurus show versus a Ferrari, which is the direction we were headed before. And there are a few sort of preconceived notions that our leadership had. One was that again, we would be kind of taking the next logical step in technology moving forward, right? There were some assumptions they had, just like anybody has. So we had to basically go back, and when leadership was skeptical and said, well, I don't get it, we shared the kata with them. And here's actually a version of the filled out kata that I actually used. And I just went through it with them step by step. So the first step here was, going up to current condition. We just wanted to test whether or not we even had a valid request from our consumers, from our customers, that they needed these extra large VMs. And we verified that empirically. Secondly, we wanted to see if our current platform could just scale to maybe accommodate these large VMs. And we found out we really needed a new platform. Thirdly, we discovered the right platform. It was that older platform that I had mentioned before. And finally, this is something I failed to neglected to mention earlier. Our leaders basically had this preconceived notion that we would maybe just have sort of a VM environment that was just for extra large VMs, if you will, like keeping the elephants sort of in a single cage and the other animals in another cage in terms of size, right? And we actually discovered that was a bad idea, and we wanted to have all sorts of VMs in all different sizes. So we were proposing not only a platform change, but also sort of a change in sort of the methodology and how we managed our VMs. And so it took us a couple meetings to get through that and share with the leaders and the stakeholders what we had come to learn. Again, we were basically competing with a decade of experience that didn't fit this use case, right? So finally, we got consensus. We went through each each iteration of meetings and shared the details with all of our leadership. And really, as far as I know, this is the first time we actually had consensus amongst all of our leaders broadly on a direction. Typically, there's, this leader gives an edict, another leader says, well, I don't think that's the right way to go, and you have sort of some political action back and forth sometimes. So again, just kind of going back and sharing some things that we've learned from that experience, from that use case, and going back to the original, I think, spirit of this presentation, which is, first of all, it takes a lot of I'll say discipline to stack rocks this way, right? I've never tried really hard to do it because oftentimes I failed, but I would imagine somebody who does this is actually spending quite a lot of time really practicing getting the motions right to get these rocks standing up perfectly. And that's really what the Kata gives us, is this clean, concise, and disciplined way of sharing the information that we've discovered. It also, seeing that particular, I guess, use of this discipline gave leaders a faith in our team as well, that we were actually, we had sort of a method to our madness in how we were testing out these new technologies. So again, the Kata helps us share in a way that I think is best for overcoming the cognitive biases of teams and leaders and stakeholders alike, showing that iterative approach like I shared with you earlier of, okay, well, we went through this iteration, we figured out this, we went through that iteration and figured out that, and next thing really helps that team sort of learn with you, right? One of the cognitive biases that my team actually had that the Kata helped us out with was we were actually somewhat nervous about giving up sort of the engineering purview of decision-making to more of a committee, right? Because engineering would typically say, this is the technology that we're doing, and you guys just have to follow suit and march to the tune of engineering, right? And so we changed all that when we started implementing the Kata and Kanban and all these different methodologies to the point where we were actually all deciding as a team. And my team actually had some problems with that. They were actually a bit afraid. And the Kata gave us, I think, faith that we could share in a cogent and I'll say fairly coherent way the journey that we went on as we came to the decisions in technology, so as to convince our stakeholders. And finally, again, this whole concept of democratic-like decision-making, pushing power to the edges, it's such a hot sort of, I'll say, idea these days when we're talking about agile development. How do we get small organizations that typically just really followed a command and control structure before, but now are basically working together in parallel in a very flat organization? How do we get those organizations to reach consensus and sort of march to the similar patterns and orders? And the Kata, I think, allows for us to exchange information in a way efficiently enough to do something like that. Again, if you're looking to decentralize your control structures in your organizations and push control and decision-making out to the edges, which is so popular these days, it's really something that I don't think you can really do without as an organization. And last point here, this is a great JFK quote, and leaders these days, talk to any of your leaders in your organization, ask them how much free time they have. Chances are they don't have a lot. And one of the things I think that Toyota Kata can help with in that respect is it can help the leader participate in the learning process without devoting huge amounts of time to actually being present there, which, again, leadership and learning are really critical. And if you don't have learning, you have, I'll say a stagnant direction. when you come to leadership decisions and things like that. So it's really important. That's all I got. Really looking forward to hearing any questions from folks who might have some. And here's some information. Please feel free to check out my website, which is linked below. Also, if you have any questions, feel free to email me or check out my LinkedIn.
Thanks, Mike. This is a great presentation and a very effective, I think, lesson on a quick lesson on Toyota Kata and using it in decision making in the typical organizations where you might have the kind of challenges you talked about, especially convincing leadership about a particular direction, a particular solution that you want to take. So with that, I'd like to invite all the people on the webinar to ask any questions that you might have. Use the questions panel that you probably see on the right side of your screens. Mike, while we are waiting for some questions to come in, let me start with one of my own. That in the way that you talked about it, it appears to be similar to sort of any kind of an iterative development process where you have like you said, the plan, do, check, act kind of a approach where you build something, you learn from it, you take corrective action, and then you carry on with the next iteration. How different is Toyota Kata in its sort of philosophy and approach as compared to simply using some of the basic approaches around, let's say, lean startup or the PDCA type of framework?
I don't think it's all that different. So PDCA can be, if you look at this particular version of the Kata, right, it's really just a PDCA in sort of different form. This one's really, I'd say, catered towards new product development. That's sort of Melissa's focus, and that's why it appealed to me. But the answer to you is it's really not very different, other than it forms a discipline that I think is very much necessary in any of these lean practices, right? And that discipline is really just formed by muscle memory. I mean, you may get to the point in your organization where you don't even use something formal like this anymore, but really, I found that my team, even though they sort of built this into their muscle memory, they prefer to record their learnings this way because it's just sort of a logical and quick way to share that learning with other teams without having to spend hours of meetings kind of trying to convince, right? So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, yes, absolutely, absolutely. So let's take a couple of audience questions here. So can this process be used to identify the desired future state if it is not already known? There are all times you start off not really knowing what your end goal is.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, I would, I guess, challenge that question in that you need to have some idea of your high overarching goal, right? In any, if you're trying to get anywhere, right? Now, if you're talking about new product development and you're talking about, for instance, trying to test a product or test an idea out via some lean startup methodology, there's a lot of cases where Melissa uses this product Kata to do just that, to basically go out and just show the process of learning about your customer base, or learning about there's some really great examples in her website, which I actually should put a link in here for, of her organization just going out and testing, making phone calls, testing customers, testing to see what type of feedback they're getting, and then they sort of form an opinion. So your target condition might not be a product here. It could be, we just want to know, or we want to understand this aspect of what our customers are looking for, right? That's the great thing about the Kata. Again, it's a meta methodology. You don't have to say a specific sort of tangible product-related goal here. It could be a condition that's related to your team. It could be an improvement that you want to make on your team in terms of how your team is executing, things like that.
Got it. Related question, and I think related to what you just said, is the approach, is the Toyota Kata approach really more suitable for new product or new solution development type of projects, or could it be used for other types of activity as well? Is it being used that way in
Yeah. So what I showed a lot of, and really this is because of the context of my team, is the product development aspect. But if you look at Mike Rother's website, the Kata can be used in many different contexts. And quite honestly, the first context it was used in was really manufacturing. And there's really a very large contingent of folks that are using Toyota Kata in healthcare, for instance, to help improve or reduce, I'll say, mistakes during surgery or mistakes that nurses make or things like that. So there's a very practical aspect to that. You can also use the improvement kata and the coaching kata, which is another variant of that kata, for helping to coach employees to sort of improve either from an aspect of self-improvement. Maybe they're looking to develop certain skills, or you could use it to really be sort of an avenue for guiding team improvement, like I said, around processes, around reducing a particular, maybe a KPI that you have that you need to actually raise or lower. Any of those can be goals in your kata, and then you can iterate your rates towards that goal. It's really, again, a meta methodology. I've said that too many times. Sorry.
But I think it explains what your sort of overall process has been, the way you used it. So is it widely used within your organization, Mike? Do all teams follow this approach as they start to work on a new product development project, or?
I would say no. And certainly it's sort of a burgeoning, I think, methodology within Optum, and really in technology in general. If you look at Toyota Kata in the book that Mike wrote, a lot of it is really patterned towards early on. His experience was really built around manufacturing, and just like lean in other contexts, people have taken the methodology and applied it towards knowledge work, which is what I'm guessing most of the attendees on this webinar actually do. And to be quite honest with you, working in technology, I actually find that it's much needed. That this level of discipline that we oftentimes sort of don't give a lot of credence to in technology actually helps to make the team more focused, more efficient, and ultimately happier, because it helps you to kind of weigh in. You saw that iterative sort of approach to it. Well, you can use that as a way to manage your WIP to a certain degree, right? Yeah. So it really helps drive the discipline of practicing these other methodologies. If you're doing Scrum, if you're doing Scrumban, if you're doing Kanban, underpinning those methodologies and helping you to really excel at them.
Right. Got it. One of the things that you talked about at the start of the presentation was about the challenge of convincing leadership, and the whole notion of leaders already knowing what the solution is, and essentially trying to implement that, and that's a significant challenge that I think most organizations face. That
Yeah.
It is really a top-down driven approach to implementing any new solution. So do you have any advice there on, or do you have any practical experience to share there about how do you go about changing that mindset? Is it simply following this process, or do you have to sort of prep them in advance about Toyota Kata in general?
Yeah. So I've given presentations about the Kata. Surprisingly, my CTO of our organization, actually she's got her PhD and is actually very excited about the scientific method. And so when you talk about the Kata as a way to sort of focus on problems rather than people, in terms of putting pressure towards solving issues. That's something that I think speaks to most leadership at that level. The other thing is, for leaders that are sort of used to sort of a command and control sort of methodology that we previously, I think, was very popular in the 80s and 90s, and now are trying to get agile with their organization by moving more towards a mission command type of scenario. This is actually a great exercise to run with senior leaders as well, because it helps them focus on really these high-level conditions. The senior leaders can absolutely still be prescriptive about the goal and the target condition, right? I mean, this is sort of their sort of realm, right? Strategy, setting the strategy for the organization. What is the goal, that high-level thing that we need to actually accomplish, right? What is the target condition that we need to get to? Well, we need to make sure we coach in some cases to help our senior leaders understand, how prescriptive you get in that target condition, so as you can still leave some leeway for the team to do this discovery work, this pure innovation that we're looking to actually do. And then you basically say, hey, anything below the line, that's up to the team. So we're going to share all this stuff with you guys and share what we learned. And we're going to do our best to iterate through this as quickly as possible. So here's another way, great analogy that I often use and we've been experimenting with. Oftentimes we have sort of 2 or 3 levels of portfolio items in terms of size or scale in our portfolios. So you might have sort of an epic, right, type size, which is sort of a high-level goal, and it really aligns to this goal right here, right? And then, you may have a feature, which is much more technically driven, more really, I'll say, practical or tactical in terms of focus, which is a level below that epic, which is really can be your target condition, right? And then finally, each iteration here, oftentimes in my team, ends up being a user story level type mapping. So when you're thinking about sort of practically applying the Kata to Kanban, in the case where we're actually implementing this in the portfolio, there's sort of a direct
Looks like we lost Mike's audio. Mike, are you able to hear me? It looks like I have lost audio or Mike has lost audio. Let me just make sure that looks like he might have. Just give me a second. Okay, it looks like Mike is the one that's lost his audio. Apologize for that. Let's give him a minute or so to see if he can come back and join in.
Oh, sorry about that.
There you go, Mike.
I for some reason lost my connection.
Okay,
all
good.
Right.
Now.
So I apologize. I'm not really sure where I got cut off.
Let me see. You were I think explaining the mapping of the Kata with the epic feature and the sort of user story in the way that you implement it internally.
Right. Right, and I guess my point there is that that seems to be a pretty good direct alignment to how that, if you're thinking about practically applying the Kata and how does this fit in with your Kanban board or how does this fit in with your portfolio, It's a really sort of good analogy to think about it that way.
Right, absolutely. And in fact, I see some clear mapping of the way that we would define, one or multiple Kanban boards to exactly map your process that you defined here. And I better understand some of the discussions that we've had in the past about some features that we could be implementing in Swift Kanban.
Yeah.
Another question here, based on the slide that he's showing, that the learn column that he showed at the end, is that a lessons learned column? Is that what it's used for?
Absolutely. Yeah. So just to pull out the practical thing or a practical example of that. So this is, again, if you think about this board, you have a current condition, you have obstacle. The step is really based that you're going to take is based on a hypothesis that you've built, right? So yeah. I have an obstacle, and I think I can get around this obstacle through trying this. And so I oftentimes found it's very helpful to record what you expect to happen. And then what you learn is actually what is the actual tangible result of that step. So in this case, it's directly related to a new product we're developing. In other cases, it could be related to learning that you took the step and it didn't work at all, right? And so you've got to try something else, and that's okay. But the fact is you're recording that journey, and you're basically, again, this whole idea of leaving those breadcrumbs so you can kind of follow your steps.
Okay, makes sense. Another sort of a higher level question, again, from an organizational transformation perspective. What was your experience, sort of convincing your immediate team and perhaps getting them to get that muscle memory, developed of using this methodology, of using this framework for driving decisions?
Mm-hmm. To be quite honest, the initial feeling I had when practicing this, just like practicing any new movement, was that it was uncomfortable.
Right.
It actually, the team didn't really quite know, what to do with it at first, and it wasn't until they saw the benefits of, in this particular case, which took a month and a half, that they really started to see, oh, okay, I get it. I understand that this is something that can be helpful. But oftentimes, yeah, I'd have to basically coach. And one of the things I recommend, and I've learned over a year of practicing this now, is it's worth having really, if you have daily stand-ups or something like that, it's worth having maybe, the last quarter, or maybe adding 15 minutes on the end of your daily stand-up to go through the kata and just say, okay, well, let's talk about what you guys have learned today and what are your next steps. And getting started is really just a matter of practicing this yourself, finding a coach if you can to help you. And oftentimes, your coach can be, the learner and the coach can interchange positions. So you might have different katas you're working through, and you don't have to be a manager to be a coach. You could also be a learner and, have somebody on your team coach you if you really want to, right? It's about kind of sharing that learning and helping each other build that discipline.
Right. Great. I think there are no other questions that I see from the audience, but it's been a fairly engaged audience. I think that for most people, I would assume that this is a new topic. Mike, I don't know if that's been your experience talking to other audiences when you presented this session. I think it provides a really useful useful framework for people to take on the challenge of firstly convincing leadership about the overall approach, and then to actually work through different lessons that you learn as part of your journey, and to really make the right choices to arrive at a solution that's really going to be the actual solution for the problem that you started off solving initially. So really a great framework to present and to learn from. So thank you very much, Mike. Any closing thoughts from your side?
No, just again, please, if you want to find links to any of the material that I have shared with you, please check out my website, which is the link down the bottom there. I have some links in there to Melissa's work as well, and also to Mike Rother's work, who again was the sort of creator or person who coined the name Toyota Kata. Not really creator, since it's a Toyota production system methodology, but again, would welcome your feedback, would definitely welcome any questions.
Absolutely. So if you have any questions in the audience which have not been answered today, or if you're curious about the topic, please reach out to Mike at the email being shown here. We will follow up with a link to the recording, and if you have any direct questions on using the Toyota Kata framework, certainly reach out to Mike. If you have questions around the tools and products that you're using within your lean agile environment and would like to learn more about the solutions that Digiity provides, just go over to digiity.com and reach out to us in terms of answering any question that you might have. Thank you all very much for your time today. Mike, thank you so much for your time and the great presentation. And I look forward to meeting you all in a future webinar. Thanks again very much.
Thank you.